Hello everyone, we are back with another drawing workshop today. And as I've been promising for a couple weeks now, I'm going to start talking a little bit about cartooning, so that just sort of drawing somewhat likenesses, but not focusing in on exactly duplicating your reference. So, I've talked a little bit about building like face structures. I've talked about individual face structures like eyes, nose, and mouth, and today we're going to kind of use those and work on a kind of cartoony likeness. So let's get started. First thing you need is your reference. You can probably do a lot of this from memory once you get good at it. I'm just going to do this today just to show you some examples of how I would interpret this picture. So as you can see, I have a picture of Luke Skywalker, just because he's awesome. Why wouldn't I? Okay. And what I've done first, as you can see, I have a slightly different setup, and I will zoom in more later just so you can see what I'm drawing. But right now I wanted you to see my workspace setup, because I have my paper here. I kept mine in a notebook, but you don't have to. And what I've done is I've put Luke up in the corner here. And that is just to get an initial angle. So I have my ruler and I'm going to kind of run it straight through the middle of his face here. So then you can see that down here below my reference picture, I have the same angle that his face is tilted at, and I've drawn it here. Now, this method is more for drawing like an exact duplicate of a picture, but I find it kind of useful just to get you started on kind of cartooning. You're going to be exaggerating a lot of the rest of it. So, you know, kind of finding lines, finding flow, and sort of exaggerating them. But I kind of like to start with this. And you can take this to extremes. Like if you wanted to, you could, you know, go each side of his face. You could measure out like where his eyes are if you wanted an exact copy of this, but I don't. So I'm just starting with this kind of tilt here. So that is where we're going to start. We're going to do our picture down here, and I will now do an adjustment of the camera so that you can actually see what I'm doing, and I'm going to show you some lines that I'm going to follow on this picture. Okay, and we're back a little bit closer up so you can actually see what I'm referencing. And just real quickly, I'm going to go over what I'll be using to do this. I'm using a blue pencil today to do my sketch so that I can kind of go over the lines later with a regular pencil. I'm going to be using just a little mechanical eraser, and hopefully I will remember to use my eraser swiping brush. Okay. But first we're going to go in with the blue pencil. All right, so when I'm starting out kind of doing sort of a likeness, I'm going to start to find the shapes involved in making this face. And since I've just like printed out this picture, I'm going to be able to just draw over the top of it, so that's great. So if you remember, when you're starting out, we do kind of a circle for like the top of the head here. So the circle would go here and end right about at his nose. And then his jaw is pretty square. So it's going to be more of a rectangular shape off the bottom of our circle. So over here I'm going to do that, and I'm really not going to worry too much about making it exact. I'm probably going to say that a whole lot this video. I'll try not to. But just remember, we're not going for exact. We're just going to end up with kind of a little cartoon of Luke Skywalker. So that is kind of the shape that I traced here. And honestly, like, tracing is kind of a good way to get the muscle memory in. So if you want to go over it a couple of times just to sort of get the feel of it. But as you can see, that's pretty close. Like that's, you know, he's got the kind of turn in his jaw down here, and he's got sort of a square chin going on there. So that's pretty close. And as you can see here, his neck does kind of come in a little bit from his jaw, but for the sake of the cartoon, I'm going to simplify it, and that's kind of a big thing in cartooning, is kind of simplifying the shapes that you see. So I'm going to come in and have his neck coming straight off of his jaw here. And then he's got his little Jedi robes going on here. There we go. And I'm just going to sketch those in. So as you can see here in the picture, the collar has like a little shape here, like a little dent, and it kind of bends around, so it's not really a triangle. Here I've really simplified it, and I'm just going to go in with sort of a bendy triangle that meets up with the other side. And I'm just going to shade it in. I'm going to shade a little bit as I go, just because, you know, it'll be easier to keep track of the shapes that I'm going to keep and the shapes that I'm going to discard or erase when I'm refining the drawing. There we go. You can get real picky about this, but we're going to focus on his face. So I have that sort of fleshed out there, and now to sort of frame his face, I'm going to find the shape of his hair. And as you can see, this picture, I printed it out in black and white, and I did that just so that it's easier to find the shapes in here, especially when you get to his facial features. But you do kind of lose some of his hair in there. That's okay, because as I said, we're really not being precise. So I'm going to find the approximate shape of his hair, which is very fluffy and 70s right now, so, and it goes a little bit above his head, it's very fluffy. And I'm just going to sketch it in. I'm not going to worry too much about the exact shape of it, or certainly not the strands. I'm just going to go like that. So as you can see here, I've kind of broken it up into a few major shapes. His fringe or bangs that come over his forehead here, like that, is pretty square looking. And on the other side, I get this little flip out here. So you can see that the important part is going to be the shape of it on his face. And then the rest, kind of the little wings here, wings there. And that's all I'm going to do on the hair right now. Okay. So now I think the most important part here is going to be his eye shape and his mouth shape. And to do that, again, you probably want to trace it a couple times. So he's got sort of this half moon shape to his eyes. So the top lid's pretty curved. He is looking up a little bit. The bottom lid is pretty straight across. So when I go to draw that in, I'm going to approximate about how high on his face it is. And I'm going to use that, you know, kind of his hair as reference there. His eyes, this eye's pretty close up to where his hair is there, so it kind of gives me a line to work with. So I'm going to put in those little half moon shapes. And again, when I'm drawing eyes, I'm going to do I'm going to build the shapes at the same time. I can make words happen and draw. Okay. So just, you know, top lid, bottom lid, so that they match a little bit. So there you have his very basic eye shape, and that's really kind of, you know, all you have to have is a basic shape, because we're not getting like super into details. We're going to choose the details that make him look like him, right? And now going in, his brow's really straight over here. It's constantly perplexed expression. Okay. And draw those in. And again, you can trace them a couple times, you know, if you want to print out your reference. It does kind of help. All right. So when I drew in the circle, the bottom's about here, and that's about where his nose is. And I'm not going to put a lot of work into his nose right now. I'm going to indicate where it is, but so that it doesn't take up, you know, a lot of kind of detail bandwidth, I'm just going to kind of delineate where it ends. So like his nostrils, so the placement of his nose on his face is more important than the actual shapes involved. Okay. And then the next important part is his mouth. And again, it has this like kind of curved shape on top and a flat shape on the bottom. So, and then do kind of, you know, pay attention to like approximately how wide it is. It looks like he's talking right now, so it's a little bit, you know, open. So I'm going to do that. And there you go. So then I've really simplified the shape into kind of, you know, just like a bow. And I'm going to, like I said, go ahead and do the shading the corners, and then shade his teeth a little bit so they don't stand out a whole lot. The other thing I notice about Luke is that he has a little dimple in his chin there. So I'm going to make sure I include that because that's sort of a him. It's a detail that makes him look like him again. So there we go. And now that you have sort of the, you know, general shapes down, you have his face down looking, you know, kind of like Luke Skywalker there. Then you can start going back and choosing which lines you want to keep, which lines you want to alter. So you can, you know, exaggerate like his haircut or modify his haircut a little bit. I've drawn in the bottoms of his ears because he's got the hair that covers the tops of them here. So all of these details are kind of going to come together, and even though it's a really simplified drawing, you have, you know, in context, you would be able to tell who this is because he has, you know, a distinctly shaped eyebrow. I would say probably distinctly shaped mouth and eyes. So if you were drawing him with a bunch of other characters, you would pick and choose the features that you want to highlight on them, like, you know, simplify their eye shape a lot, simplify their mouth shape, and then anything that is not necessary to identifying them, like at this angle, you know, his nose. From the side, somebody's nose might be way more important of a feature. Like if they have a bump on their nose or a broken nose or like a little small nose, you would definitely want to work on that. But from this angle, it's not too important to the drawing. So I just sort of skipped over it a little bit. So there you have it. That's kind of a basic, very quick kind of cartooning, and I will come back to this topic again next week. And so we'll kind of be working from this basis, sort of simplifying things, picking features we want to accentuate, and then we'll work on some other stuff there. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I know this was quick. I was trying to keep it quick this week, but have fun with this because this is kind of, you know, a good way to practice. You know, it involves a lot of tracing and a lot of transferring of shapes and paying attention to shapes. So it's a good thing to learn how to do when you're learning to draw. Anyway, hope you had fun and liked this video. And if you did like this video, go ahead and subscribe to the Westland Public Library's YouTube channel, and be sure to click that bell for updates. All right, see you next week. Bye.